If you're new to the woo and wondering how to get started diving down the rabbit hole of all the magical things, this episode is for you. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. Welcome to our world where woo-woo meets science, because let's face it, when I started going down the rabbit hole of all things woo-woo, Chris was not on that journey with me at all. He's like, okay, babe, have fun. See you over there. Like, tell me about it later, I guess. Maybe not. So when I decided that I wanted to go see a psychic for my birthday in, what was that, 2012, 2013? And I think it was 2012. When I wanted to go see the psychic, I did not know that it would lead to me falling in love with all things woo. And looking back now over the last 8 years, it seems like you have jumped in this rabbit hole with me, which it also reminds me of your vows to me at our wedding, which we just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. So if you didn't catch our podcast on relationships, that one was awesome, because we share all of our insights on how we create this intimacy. And it's allowing each other space to be their weird self. Like Chris does all his Aquarian science experiments, and I do all my witchy things. And what we've found over time is, as you develop your passions and curiosities, if you can bring them together, even if your partner doesn't necessarily like it, they can come to a place to appreciate it once they understand it.
I think what's really important is that the reason why you find woo-woo things, or really anything like this, is you come to a space in your life where all of the tools and the methods that you have learned so far have not brought you to where you want to be. They're either unfulfilling, they're not rewarding, you're not happy. And so there was a time in our lives where nothing that we did was making us happy. It was literally just, our life felt like we were on repeat. Every day it was just the exact same day over and over again, except it felt like we weren't getting anywhere. Like, 6 months down the road, you typically want to be in a better place than you're in right now. At least that's how I feel. And we weren't doing that. And so when BRIT went off and was really starting to get into spirituality and more new age type things, it was weird to me, because I've always been such a let's read a lot, let's study a lot, let's do experiments a lot. And none of this stuff was on my radar. None of the things that she was talking about was even something that I'd considered a possibility. And so despite the fact that it sounded weird, I was interested in it from an experimental process, because if any of this stuff works, holy smokes. And so I'm always willing to try new things. And because I knew that we were in that space where we needed something different. And even if it didn't work, just the hope or the belief that it may work is enough to spark something. So if this is new for you, try all this stuff out as experiments. Try everything as an experiment. Just, does it work in your life? Because there comes a point where you're not as interested in, are things true or not? You're more interested in, what do they bring into your life? And I think that was a space that I'd never been in before. I never thought that way. And so just to try things out, and so many of them end up resonating, and you find that there is a lot of truth in a lot of this. And it was phenomenal. I'm really glad that you took me on this journey, because this is not something that I would have done on my own.
I know your vows said, if you're jumping off the cliff, I'm right behind you. And I jumped off the cliff. I remember one of the guys at one of the first crystal shops we ever went to was like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? I'm like, there's a rabbit hole? Like, tell me more. I remember just crying, like standing in that crystal shop and just crying, being overwhelmed with like this like this feeling of like, I don't know, vibration, like energy. It was just like intense feeling, which I hadn't really noticed that before. But to take it back, before I went to, I drug you to the psychic and I went to go see her and she told me I should start reading tarot cards. Before that, that was after our near-death experience on the mountain in Colorado. And let me just side note, our recent trip to Aspen tried to kill me again, climbing up this crazy mountain. Like, it was 1,000 feet elevation, just like basically straight up. And when we were coming down, there was a girl and her partner on the trail, and she said, "Do you have enough room?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And the second my foot hit the pavement, I went straight down the mountain for a good ways, like at least 20 or 30 feet. And it's so interesting, like how mountains are a symbol of that enlightenment, or that spiritual peak of where you've been working so hard, you've been doing nothing forever. When you're hiking up a mountain, it seems like you're going nowhere for the longest time. And then as you get to the peak, you're like, oh my God, I see how all of it has come together now. Busting my ass on the mountains in Colorado again. Any thoughts on that now that we're talking about woo-woo stuff and just reflecting on it?
Climbing just the mountain. The mountain's always such a great metaphor for everything in life. We're always climbing this mountain. And I love the quote that we used to see in the park we walk through every day, where it's like, no, doesn't matter the size of the mountain, waiting won't make it smaller. So waiting to climb that mountain won't make it smaller. So anything in your life where you're waiting until it's perfect, until everything's right, and you have enough information, that won't ever help you. That moment won't ever come. And getting into the topic of intuition, which is fascinating, because intuition means knowing beyond logic, or knowing without reasoning. You just automatically know it. It's just automatic. Like, hey, I've got to get over right now on the road, or this person that I just met, I feel weird around them. And so it's trusting those feelings. We have neglected doing that so much because of the way we're brought up in our schooling. We worship the rational mind in so many ways, and we disconnect ourselves from the feelings and the internal system, the internal guidance system that we all have. And I watched you not only fall off a mountain, but the cooler spot is I watched you slowly climb back up it on the side of the face of the mountain, which I've never seen you really rock climb before in your life, but you figured out how to do it. And just watching you do it, and watching you do it calmly, despite the fact that there's definitely intense danger. I'm like, well, there goes my wife. This is going to be a long walk down by myself to the bottom of this mountain. And the grace that you had, and being able to be calm and stay with your breath, and just goes back to all the techniques we're always teaching people, because when you get in those situations like that, if you panic and freak out, the intuition is not there. That's one of the biggest secrets about intuition. If you're in the wrong brainwave state, if you're in a state of fear, if you're in a state of running away, if you're afraid at all, then you don't get the messages. They're too quiet. You won't hear them because the fear is it's like a megaphone in your head, and your whole body responds to that first to try and protect you. Your body's always trying to keep you alive. And so if you have fear, then it can't give you the really cool insight that so many of us are desperate. Should I be in this relationship? Should I go after that job? What's my next step? All those things are already there if you're quiet enough. But if you're afraid, I don't have any money, what am I going to do? And you're in this panic mode, then you can't hear them. And so I got to watch you go through that. You didn't hit that panic mode. And it's weird because you're in a situation where you probably should have panicked, but you didn't. You just totally relaxed and just, 5 minutes later, you're back up the mountain. We're walking down together again as though nothing happened besides you're covered in gravel. But
blood.
But it was beautiful to watch, and you trusting yourself and just doing the best that you could in that moment without spending energy worrying or any. It was awesome. It was awesome to see.
It's crazy because I feel like, the second I got my ass back up on the mountain, and thanks for your assistance, by the way, I was just like, nailed that, like it felt like, wow, life throws these crazy challenges. And the way that your face looked at me looked like, oh, this is really bad. But the way that I felt was like, fucking crushed it. Like, try to knock me down, I will get back up and I will not complain about it. I will not freak out. I will not do all those things that waste and squander our energy and creative solutions on how the fuck to move forward. And so I just kept trying. And when I got up to the top, the girl that I had fell basically around, she looked at me like I had just died. She looked at me like she had seen a ghost, and she said, "How are you so calm?" And I think that's like the theme of when it gets down to the woo-woo world, it's really about trance states and, you know, altered states of consciousness. And what that means is you have to learn to relax. And what my biggest lesson, come to find out, being a Libra, October 13, is you have to relax. And why you have to relax is because you can only access your intuition while you're in a relaxed state, which is why November's theme for us in the Elevated Life is all about relaxation. In the club, we'll be diving into a masterclass all about relaxation and sharing all these techniques. And we even have a podcast coming out this month for you just to share a little bit more about why it's so important to relax and how to do that, because we all know to relax, and we all know to love and to be kind, but it's like actually implementing it. And I feel like that mountain experience was me implementing all of those tools, all of the beliefs, and just all the lessons that I've been learning in time. And high five, I freaking crushed that.
Bingo.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right, back to the woo-woo.
Yeah, so one of the first things that BRIT started doing, the way we got into this conversation at all, was she asked me, do you ever see repeating numbers? Like, do you ever see the same number every day? And I said, no. I mean, unless I set my alarm for the same time every day, that's the only number I'm seeing. And so BRIT said, since she was
like 15 maybe,
that she sees the same number and for her it's 1124. So she tells me about this, and then I start seeing this number. And so it starts happening for me too. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. Why am I seeing this number?
Literally every single day. It will show up on the clock. It will show up somewhere, whether it's morning or night. I'll just be like, I wonder what time it is, and randomly check, which I don't usually. I mean, it's like not that I care what time it is usually. And always 11:24. And it started to like freak me out. Like, that's why I told Chris, I'm like, I need somebody to check me on this. Like, I need to make sure I'm not going crazy over here. And that's when I shared that with you. And we came across a friend who had said he experienced the same thing. He saw the 4:16 on the clock every day, which happened to be his birthday. 11:24 didn't have any relevance to me. So I'm like, well, I wonder what 11:24 means. And if other people are looking up numbers or experiencing these numbers, maybe I can look it up. So that was one of the first things I did, was I started looking at angel numbers. But it also takes me back to that feeling, that feeling I had in the crystal shop, the feeling that I had when the lady told me I should start reading tarot. It was the very first feeling I ever had when it comes to woo-woo. I think the beginning conversation of this, like that I can consciously remember, is having my client sit in the chair one time at the salon. And she told me she was Buddhist, and she was like a white American woman. And she's like, I'm Buddhist, and blah, 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 and chakras and pendulums. And I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, but I'm interested. Like, tell me more. That was the first time I think I'd ever been introduced to anything like that conversation. The word chakras was extremely foreign to me. And she came in one day with a pendulum, and she said, this can, read your energy basically and give you a right or wrong answer, a yes or no answer to questions that you have. And I'm like, all right, well, can I try it? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I hold the pendulum and nothing happens. And she takes it back and she asks the pendulum, will you work for her? And it starts spinning in a circle. And I'm like, I think she's moving her elbow. I was still skeptical. I mean, just like everyone with a brain and an analytical side, like we have to experience the magic before our logical mind can even let go of the fact that it can't understand. And so, which, come to find out, you can use a lot of science to explain metaphysical, which is very fascinating.
Pendulum's one of those things.
Which, we are made of energy. Hello. So I take the pendulum back and I hold it and I ask her, I probably shouldn't ask anything I don't want to know, right? She's like, yeah, definitely not. So I did it anyway. And I asked, will Chris and I be together forever? And that thing took off like a helicopter. I literally dropped it and just bawled like a baby and was like, okay, that's weird. Why am I crying? What the fuck just happened? And it was one of those unexplainable moments where your rational, logical mind can't grasp the feeling and the experience that you had. And that sent me down that rabbit hole. Not in time. It slowly developed. And then once we had that that life or death experience on the mountain the first time, which we've talked about on the podcast, and led me to the psychic to get the cards, which really started kickstarting our journey together, because I took you with me to go see Serena, and I was like, listen, she told me I need to get tarot cards. I'm supposed to not sleep with the tower and the devil together. Like, I don't know what is happening, but I've got the cards and you need to go see this broad. And she looked at Chris, and the first thing she said to him was like, honey, you need to get back into past life you need to get back into hypnosis, specifically past life regressions.
Yeah, and it was weird because, I mean, I don't, back then I never talked to anybody about it. The only person who really knew that I did hypnosis was BRIT, and then the few people back then who were allowing me to basically experiment with them to learn more. And for her to come out and say that without me ever mentioning anything or having it anywhere was really interesting. And so I did it. I mean, why not? You know, I always loved the experimental part of it. And so I thought, well, you know, if she's suggesting this, and you know, why not? Let's go try it out. And so that's exactly what we did. We got into doing past life regressions, and they're really cool. They're interesting because if what's interesting is that the person can go into the regression experience and have a problem and go into a past life, which at the time to me seemed totally far-fetched, but then come back out and not have the problem that they came in originally for. So a person may feel self-conscious, or they may not lack confidence, or who knows, the regular problems that we all face. And then they go into this past life regression state and have an experience, then come back, and then it's gone. And so that's when I started really thinking, well, I wonder if any of the other stuff Brit's doing works, because this worked. And whether it's true or not didn't matter. To see a person who was debilitated by some sort of thought pattern they've been thinking for 30 years, and it's caused them not to get the job they wanted, not to find the relationship that they wanted, not to have the type of bond or intimacy with a partner. They don't have the same kind of connection with their kids that they want. And to see them gain that from sitting down in a chair and listening to me talk for 45 minutes to an hour, like being able to see someone go through that, my views were changed. And it didn't matter, if it was real or not. It just mattered to me that they feel different now. They are experiencing some kind of phenomenal change that I can't really explain. So past lives were one of those things that tipped me off in the direction that maybe everything I know is not exactly true. Maybe there's some extra things that are there that I need to be really paying attention to.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So the pendulum then kind of led into, she mentioned chakras, so I started to learn about that. And I remember writing my friend a card and being like, I'm just like into metaphysical things right now. And I had to look it up because I'm like, I don't even know what I'm in. What is this? Like, what am I do? Like, what rabbit hole did I get myself into? And it led to the psychic, the near-death experience. She said, you need to start doing hypnosis. She told me to buy some tarot cards, and I had the gift. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but I kind of know what you're saying, because like I have always like known that I know things, but I never had a language to describe it or other people to talk to about it. And when you started studying all the hypnosis work, we found that there was a whole realm of metaphysical hypnosis, clearing chakras, talking to spirit guides, and into developing your intuition and psychic abilities. So I was in 100%. If you haven't listened to our podcast on hypnosis, be sure to go back and check that out, because we dive into how Chris got started over 20 something years ago in hypnosis, how it came back because of the psychic, and what you do now with it to help change people's lives in an instant, which is what you're talking about with the past life regressions that you offer.
Yeah. And the other thing that, when we were talking about this and talking about Colorado again, and how Colorado always ends up almost killing us, the other thing I remember about Colorado was you reading, Britt had a client, which is great. One of the coolest things that Britt does, because she owns a salon and she's always seeing...
The pendulum lady's daughter recommended the book.
Okay,
yes.
so
that's crazy.
She has access to so many different... Britt has an all-female salon, so she has access to all these different perspectives, and that's what all these are, perspectives, and how people live their lives and what kind of information. So I'm always asking her, like, what the cool stuff's going on. And one of her clients, the daughter, recommended
Star Signs by Linda Goodman.
And so Linda Goodman is a psychic lady who ends up moving into Nikola Tesla's house in Cripple Creek, Colorado. And so Brit's reading this book, and she's talking about Tesla, who I'm extremely fascinated with. I mean, Tesla is just such a king
He's
figure.
The OG witch.
He is. You think Einstein's smart? Like Tesla would just blow him out of the water. And so I've always been fascinated by his work and what he's done. And so Brit's reading this book, and she's talking about this psychic who ends up moving into his house. And so I say, let's go to Cripple Creek. Like, let's just pack up right now.
Oh, no. I said...
Was it you?
Oh, yes,
Brit's
sir.
claiming it. I'm pretty certain it was me.
I'm totally claiming this one.
This was me.
Mr. Spontaneous Aquarius, sure.
So
we'll let you have this one.
So we end up going to Cripple Creek. We drive there, and so she's reading Linda Goodman's book, and at the exact same time, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill for the first time. And what Napoleon Hill starts talking about is using energy and basically how to manifest. Think and Grow Rich is a manual for manifesting what you want in your life, for really taking your, obviously thinking, taking your thoughts and then turning them into, he wrote the title for prosperity, but you can literally use it for anything. And so Brit's reading something about woo-woo stuff, and then I find a guy who's very credible. I mean, Napoleon Hill is Andrew Carnegie's protege. He basically went to Andrew Carnegie to be able to study and figure out what wealthy people did differently than unsuccessful people, and then wrote a book on it, and then spent the rest of his life teaching those principles. So if you haven't read that book, you need to go order it immediately. And so we're reading those two things at the same time, and they start to cross paths because Napoleon Hill starts talking about energy and energy work and how to transmute it. And I'd never thought about that. I never talked about that. No one had ever mentioned how your energy is, or like what you're really doing in your mind to manipulate the images that you're thinking, or the sounds that you hear when you talk to yourself. And so it got me very interested in what Brit was doing. And so we had a cool experience in Cripple Creek.
Yeah, we ended up getting into Tesla's house because it ended up being for sale while we were there. I wanted to go check it out, and there was all kinds of weird vibes going on in that house. And there was a man working construction on it while we were there, and he was like, yeah, there was a psychic that lived here, and she just disappeared. I'm like, yeah, she died in Colorado Springs. But I love hearing the stories about it. We ended up getting in the basement, and there was a whole thing written on the wall, like this door that Tesla had written.
Yeah, the way Tesla's house was done is they'd adjoined it to the house next to it to try and make it a bed and breakfast. And so this guy's in there doing repairs on it for the sale. And so we're walking through there, and I could constantly hear voices that sounded like they were in another room, which was weird because we're the only people in the house with the repair guy. And I keep hearing these voices, which has never happened to me in my life. And we walk into this area that's a dining room, basically, and there's this chair that's put up against this like
mini door,
like pseudo door along the wall. So I'm like, well, what's in this? What is this? And so move the chair out of the way, and the contractor is working outside, so we have the inside all to ourselves. And open the door up, and there's this piece of plywood that it says in there that it is a portal, and it's sealed with a curse.
Yeah, it said, "Try no more than thrice, or meet thy doom." Like it was signed with his signature. Like,
and like I'm not into like all this stuff to start
legit.
with, and so like walking in there and having that weird experience, is like, what is going? So obviously I open the door. I mean, if it's a portal, like please let me in. And so. But it just we'll
only try twice, I promise.
it just went into his basement, but it was just so interesting that would happen. I don't know what we were doing there. I don't know why we were reading those books at that time. I don't know what, but here we are, and this is how that rabbit hole works. And a lot of people ask us like, well, what's my next step? And what's my next step? And like the next step always
is to listen.
Will reveal itself to you.
Yeah,
like,
listen and say yes.
Like I did never plan on going to Cripple Creek. I never even heard of that place.
No, we went on an impromptu, like within a week or two of opening up that book. I was like, all right, we just like got on Airbnb and booked this random ass cabin in the middle of the mountain, which we almost tried to die on that one too. And then that lady who was all bloody, like came running up to the car. I mean, No, just Colorado. What is the deal, Colorado?
Colorado's brutal.
Such a challenge. Okay, so at that time, I was definitely into the angel numbers. I had kept seeing those repeating numbers, but now it has expanded to like 1111, 333, 222. So I got on Sacred Scribes and started looking up, what do these numbers mean? Because numbers are a universal language, and angels, your spirit guides, use numbers to be able to communicate with you so that it can get your attention, which is why we start to see 1111 when we're starting to awaken. We start to experience those synchronicities. That's one of the easiest signs to kind of like ding on your like your soul, to kind of like a remembrance, like, oh yeah, there's magic, like wake the fuck up. And so I kept looking up all these angel numbers and meanings. Like, it was crazy the amount of information that was coming through at that time.
Yeah, if Britt looked at the clock or anything, it meant she was looking up a number. It could be on a license plate. If the number's on a license plate, Britt's looking it up. I mean, it was nonstop when she originally got into angel numbers. It was just every number. Time. Price on a receipt, we're looking that one up. Let's look it up.
Listen, I was just curious and I was open to it. And I had read a book at that time, which I highly recommend. Like, pick up witchy books or woo-woo books. There's so much information in there. And one of the books I came across was Ask Your Guides by Sonia Chouqet. And just like Chris mentioned, everything was an experiment. Did I believe in angels and spirit guides? Meh, whatever. I didn't really care either way. But it sounded kind of cool and it seemed like more fun than it not being a possibility. So I was willing to experiment with an open mind and an open heart. And going through some of the techniques in that book, starting to like have runner guides and like name them or ask them to show me their name, like things started happening that again are unexplainable to the logical mind. They just have to be experienced. And that's really how I tell people when it comes to the mediumship is, you know, I never really planned on being able to do that. It started to unfold along this journey, but it's hard to explain what that feeling is, or like when I bring through a message about somebody's loved one that I have never met in my life, and it's like what color car they drove, what kind of car, how they died, all these different things, like what, like you can't explain that logically, but it's happening. And so because it's happening to you, it's the experience that, I don't know, gives you that, trust in the magic. Yeah,
I think there's a feeling to me. It's almost of rightness. It's that feeling of coming home, you know, where you when you walk into your house, there's a certain feeling that you, well, if you live in a good spot, you know, it's a certain feeling that you have. It's an environment, and you're calm. You're really centered there. It's just a feeling of familiarity, of safety, of protection. And speaking of that, I think one of the most important things people can do if they take this route in their life and are interested in more spiritual concepts and diving in deeper is doing energy protection. And when we talk about energy, we're really talking about emotional protection. And that is to keep out the narcissists that are in your life, the people who are the time vampires who will just sort of suck you dry, the people who will come over and just complain, feed on you, the negative energy. You have to stay away from that. You have to be able to distance yourself as much as possible. And that doesn't necessarily always mean breaking up with all your friends and all, but it can mean either setting boundaries or not allowing it to happen as much. And you, especially the people who are empaths, people who love this kind of stuff and end up bringing it into their work, people maybe nurses, a lot of times they take on everyone else's problems. And if you get good at helping people in their healing process, they will come find you. And they will dump everything they can onto you, because let's say you're carrying 100 extra pounds, like in a bag on your back. If someone came and took 20 pounds off of that, you would feel a lot better. And so what they're looking for are people who will walk around not carrying anything so they can ditch some of that weight that they've been carrying for so long. And so you have to be really aware of that and start doing energy protection. It can be simple, like imagining yourself in a glowing white light, and just using that as a force outside of yourself to sort of burn through bullshit and negativity and be able to put a stop to it. Doing that is vitally important. And as strange as it may sound, the visual technique of doing it and practicing it until it's something that's built in all the time is vitally, vitally important. If you will know when it's a problem, when you start feeling yourself drained.
I was going to say, if your energy is being drained by the end of the day, then you know damn well that your aura is not protected.
And the biggest problems that people will have is that they will move to caffeine for energy during the day, and they'll burn out their nervous system doing that. I mean, coffee and tea is fine, but if you're using it all the time to be able to stay awake or stay alert or to dismiss the fact that your body's telling you you need to rest and recuperate, we have a big problem. The other thing people will do a lot of times is emotionally eat, because it's much easier to get the emotional satisfaction from food, especially high-fat, high-sugary foods. It's very easy because they're readily available to stuff that down and then to say that you're fine because your taste buds have gotten that brief hit and your brain's going crazy because of the sugar rush. You have to really be conscious about those two things. So like a good exercise plan and a good way of having some sort of protection. The other thing that we do a lot that BRIT has been into for a long time is the moon rituals that she does. And one of them needs to be, this is just following the new and full moon, figuring out where they are in the month, and then setting yourself, I like to set little reminders to be able to do a clearing ritual. You got to do something to where whatever excess stuff you've been taking on, even if you've got your exercise plan, even if you've got your protection, you're going to take on excess negativity from people, especially if you're alive right now in the world, because there's a lot of intense anxiety and worry, and it's easy to take that on and then forget about it because you're not the one actually putting it there. So at least once a month, you have got to schedule and program into your life a time where you sit down and let go of anything you're holding on to that doesn't serve you anymore. This is one of the most, and these two is one of the most important things. If you don't do this step, it will suck for you, and you will be like, you'll blame something else. But it doesn't take very long to do. It's just being conscious of what you're doing in your life and what your emotional state is, and spending the time when you feel the drag on your energy to make it right again. That means you got to get good sleep. If you're only sleeping a few hours a night, you've got to make it up. You only have 2 or 3 days to make up that sleep. So you've got to really, really, really keep your health in a space where it's helping you help people instead of hindering you. Because if you're broken and destroyed, what are you going to do for other people? You're not going to be something they can lean on. You want to be strong enough so that people can dump that weight on you, but it doesn't bother you.
They like dump it around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I find that so many highly sensitive people and empaths do have a problem with their weight because it's an energetic situation. They might eat the right way or work out or do all the right things, which is what was happening when I met you. I'm like, listen, I am not eating that many calories. I am working out for hours at a time. Like, what is going on? Only to look back now, I realize that a lot of it was like energy protection and things like that. And grounding is another great source of a way for you to dump energy back into Mother Earth and for you to draw it up and refill your vitality. Another thing that you might find yourself getting into if you're new to the woo is gardening, getting back in touch with nature. Like Chris mentioned, the moon phases and the natural rhythms of life. If you know when the new and full moon, well, if you're a woman, like you have a moon time, most likely, unless you're in the crone phase, but you will find that your moon time syncs up with the moon. A lot of us are naturally closer to the full moon, but it can oscillate between the two, which that's like a whole nother conversation. I feel like we should talk about past life regressions in a whole nother podcast. Like there's so many things that we're talking about today that I feel like could be their own full topic, but we just wanted to give you guys a quick overview. If you're new to this or you're wanting to dive deeper, these are all the different categories and areas that we've been exploring over the last, well, I say decade, but it's been lifetimes because like we old, we're like super old souls. So it's really cool to be able to use our journey of awakening to help inspire and shine a light in areas of darkness that other people are afraid to venture into. But that really is ultimately where the magic happens. And I think all of these tools are that's just it. They're tools. Like it's not that they're the magical thing. The truth is you're the magical thing, and these are all tools to help bring you back home to your soul, like Chris mentioned. And so I want to know, like, let us know in the comments and tag us on Instagram. What are some of the tools and rituals that you have found yourself getting into, whether you're just getting started and you're like, I'm kind of new to this, but I really like, pulling an oracle card from your Shine from the Inside deck. Or are you like way down, deep down into it and you're like, psychic level Reiki master 10,000, I'm ready to like transport and take, beam me up, Scotty. Like, where are you at on your journey, and what are the tools that you love to use? Do you have I mean, I would probably think that meditation or yoga is your favorite tool, but do you have a favorite tool?
I mean, it would either be, well, yep. For me, I like meditation, obviously hypnosis, that's what I do. But gardening, I found an extreme love for. I didn't know that I would really be into plant stuff. But, if you spend the time to grow a vegetable and to nurse it, you picked out the soil yourself, you went and bought the seeds yourself, you watered it, every day, and you cared for it, you have a different connection to it. And so I think gardening, to me, opened up my connection to more of the world, and it made me want to be outside more. It made me want to put my feet in the dirt a little more. It made me want to just get out there in the sun and get that good vitamin D that I need. And so despite the fact that meditation is my jam, I really feel like gardening is one of those things that I could literally do for forever. If I didn't do anything else, I could spend my whole day gardening and not be upset about that at all.
It's meditation with a ritual that
meditation.
That you're attaching to.
It's meditation. I like meditation.
Gardening because it puts me into meditation.
Well, I mean, if you look at any of these things, it's basically all of these are all putting you into a meditative state. I mean, all of it. All of it is bringing you closer to the truth, which is what a meditative state brings you to. And
like
so,
mushrooms.
Yeah, psychedelics are another. I mean,
hey, we did a podcast on that.
That goes along with gardening. The psychedelic journey. And
yeah, what are you gardening over there?
Yeah, it's just all these things are the journey to you. This is not a journey outside of yourself. It's not about figuring out more about the universe. It's all about figuring out about you. Intuition is you. It's not somebody else.
Universe.
Yeah, and tapping more into that gives you a much better life, because so many of us spend so much time with ourselves, but we don't know who we are. We have no clue. It's like the friend you just pass by every day. Like, oh, and it's just become familiar, so you don't question anything, you don't look at it. And so going into the spiritual journey, going into the woo-woo journey is only a path for you to lead deeper into yourself. If you work on any of the things that we mentioned in this podcast and it doesn't bring you closer to you, that's not the one for you. And that's where the experiment should lead you. Try these as an experiment, and if it doesn't lead you to deeper truths about yourself, abandon it completely and find something different. It's all about just looking inside. All the mysteries are inside you, and all the answers about them are inside you too. It's just that these are some of the tools that can open up different ways of thinking, different perspective shifts, which is what miracles are anyways. Miracles are just shifts in perception. So you want to be opening up your mind enough to find yourself.
And trust in the magic. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. If you loved it, please leave us a review. And if you want to learn more about the woo-woo, come find out more. I have so many resources over on the blog at BrittanyCarmichael.com, from how to get started reading tarot and oracle cards to what to do if you're spiritually awakening. I mean, I love this topic. It's so crazy that I've become so obsessed with I don't know, not only like bettering yourself, like self-discovery. That's exactly what my online school is all about. Shine School is a 6-week journey of self-discovery and transformation, because I went through that journey. I discovered myself in this process of facing my darkness so that I could see my light. And that's ultimately our wish and our goal for everyone. So we hope that you have found a new modality, a new tool, a new ritual, or a new way of thinking about things so that you can start to discover who you really are and why you are here. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you loved it. We will see. Hey, it's 11:24. Oh my gosh, the timer just said 11:24. Get out of here. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys later. Peace. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life Podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.